The Full Circle Podcast. Compelling interviews and incredible tales from Colorado's western slope, from the mountains to the desert. Christi Reese and her team hear from the movers, shakers, and characters of the Grand Valley and surrounding mountain towns that make the western slope the place we all love. You'll learn, you'll laugh, you'll love with The Full Circle. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Full Circle Podcast. I'm super excited today to talk to our friend Josh Niernberg, owner and chef at Bin 707 Food Bar and Taco Party. And we want to learn about James Beard Award and everything that you have going on. We always get excited to talk to you about the amazing food that you're making and your beautiful restaurants. So welcome, Josh.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Yeah. Pleasure to be here.
Let's start out with James Beard. What an honor that you were nominated for the national award, not just the regional.
Yeah, total surprise. Yes. It was complete surprise. We for the couple of years, 2018 through 2020, I made a conscious effort to try to get regional recognition. It's good for the restaurants, but ultimately it really helps our labor pool. And that completely changed when the pandemic hit. I went from 78, I think, to right now we have like 52 employees. I had 9 managers. Right now I have like 3. So we are a fraction of what we were. So needless to say, I haven't put effort into doing any of these things. I haven't been doing events like I previously was. So when I got the news, it was complete shock.
That's
which
fantastic.
Is pretty cool. Yeah.
So talk about the process that leads to that nomination. Is it all consumer driven, or you advocate for each other in the restaurant industry? Obviously, does that have a hand in the nomination? Other restaurateurs that see you and see what you're doing? Yeah,
I think that does have a big part in it, but it's not necessarily like a questionnaire. It's somewhat participation, but there is also a judge of peers, so they are actively nominating restaurants. Mm-hmm. So in this case, again, this is something I've gone after in the past, and there is an open nomination process that, anybody can go and write an email and say, let's look at so and so forth. Let's look at this person for a chef, and let's look at this restaurant, or let's look at this wine program, or, any of the different categories the James Beard Foundation accredits. In this case, I don't necessarily know where that came from. The nomination wasn't for a category that I ever thought that I would be, even eligible for a nomination in. So it was a complete surprise. Because
it's chef, right? There's also a category of restaurateur. Do you feel that you're more one than the other?
Depends on the day of the week.
Because you, especially through the pandemic, you had to do it all, right?
Right.
You were probably waiting tables at times and bussing and dishes and managing, ordering,
so
everything.
When, I think primarily chef first, restaurateur second, and that's kind of always been the way. Although when we opened the restaurant, I opened the restaurant to be really faceless, to kind of empower the staff to be able to come up and be proud of the roles that they're in. And it wasn't ever supposed to be the chef-driven restaurant. When we opened Taco Party, that's kind of when it changed. Taco Party probably wouldn't have succeeded if I didn't kind of step into the spotlight, so to speak, and start doing events offsite and getting out of just our community into other communities to promote. And that kind of perpetuated those things somewhat. Fast forward to now for the 2022 awards, the nomination that I'm a semifinalist for is for Outstanding Chef for the United States. This group is, I think there's 19 of us.
It just gives me goosebumps.
It's pretty wild. There's 19 chefs that I look up to just in New York City or just in Denver, or, just throughout Colorado. So to be on that list it's totally exceeded anything that I had anticipated. But at the same time, in 2020, I did receive the nomination for a regional chef, and it was for the mountain region. It was the first time that James Beard had dedicated a mountain region. Previously, we were part of the Southwest, which was basically Texas to almost California. And I really feel like the way that the mountain region has become a region really speaks to a lot of kind of what Bin 707 and Taco Party have done in the past, but also to, like the other restaurants in this region, the other restaurants throughout Colorado. We've really changed the landscape of what culinary looks like in the United States.
Well, and because you focus on regional cuisine, right?
Right. And I mean, that's a big part of the bin story, is that when we opened, it was the middle of a recession in the Grand Valley, and oil and gas had pulled out. And we looked around and said, listen, we've got a wealth of employees. We've got agriculture. We've got winemaking. Let's showcase that. That predated locavore, that predated local anything. Fast forward now, we're on the other side of that. Now labor is at an absolute premium. The model that we built was to provide as many jobs as possible, and it took a lot of jobs to operate. So in the last couple of years, we've completely flipped it.
Yeah. And I want to applaud you for the training of your staff. I mean, I think Grand Junction, before your restaurant, was never known for its professional wait staff. And you really turned that around. And there are a number of restaurants now that you can go in and I think people can make a living here as a server. And it just wasn't that way before. Why do you think Grand Junction's had such a hard time producing that level of service?
Well, a lot of that has to do with the operator, and the type of restaurant in the first place. And previous to what we were doing in Grand Junction, there were 3, maybe 4 restaurants in the entire Grand Valley that were, legitimate, higher-end, locally owned and operated restaurants. It was all chains, which means there's a formula that they follow, and that formula is based on tip credits, and it's based on minimum wage rates, and et cetera. And if any of those factors change, that business doesn't function. We never set up that way. We set up to provide well-paying long-term jobs from the get-go.
And not just your servers, but also your kitchen staff.
Right. Which means that our menu prices are set on that, which means that, our rent rates are set off of that, which means that the formula that I follow for our restaurants has to have enough room to be able to take care of staff first. And then I'll write the menu based upon where we need to hit for person averages or, average menu price or what have you.
So do you see, I know a lot of people have changed their business model because they were forced to during the pandemic. But do you plan to do you consider them efficiencies, or do you want to get back to having more staff so that you can provide more jobs and have a little bit more security and having enough people to run the place and grow? Well,
I think that the entire industry has changed pretty significantly. And I don't think that, the way that we were previously operating, it's not relevant not only for the pandemic, but also because minimum wage increases that happened through that time frame as well have completely changed the industry. On our end, we've made some major shifts in our hours of operation. We've also made major shifts in how we pay our staff. We do a service charge at both of the restaurants in lieu of gratuity. Which is really it's by far, I think, the best way to do it. But it comes with so much confusion from a consumer standpoint that it has more to do with the way tip law is written. The way that we are now collecting a service charge guarantees that all of our staff that is not salaried, that is not ownership, that is not manager, shares that instead of just maybe 2 or 3 people as it is dedicated under tip law. Operating like that and changing the way that we operate, it changes the hours of operation that we need to function. It doesn't make sense to be open at 2:00 in the afternoon for an empty restaurant with 6 people on for the sake of saying they have something to do. And, I think we all know that most people waiting tables at 2:00 in the afternoon are polishing silverware for minimum wage, which is, it's a waste of everybody's time and labor.
Getting back to James Beard a little bit, what would it mean to you? Or do you allow yourself to think about what would it be like if you were chosen the top dog?
I have zero aspirations for that. And, again, it was a total surprise. But looking down the list, I mean, it's almost instantaneous imposter syndrome. Yes, I've been writing menus, and yes, I've been, trying to showcase our region. And I think that's a lot of where the value comes from for the nomination. But when it comes to, some of the techniques that some of the other chefs are using and some of the other cuisines that they're showcasing, it's so night and day different from what we're doing that it's, in some way, I almost feel like it wouldn't be fair to some of those other chefs that have really pushed a lot harder into, kaiseki cuisine or similar.
We're just so thankful that you're here and bringing amazing things to our palates. Where do you like to go, and how do you travel? When you go places to sample other chefs' food and their restaurants, how do you determine where you want to go? And
I think the bigger part of that answer is that I'm kind of always paying attention. It's not necessarily a destination to see what's happening. It's more of like this conversation of what's for sale in the grocery store. It's what's coming out of, this farmer or this distributor or what have you, what the national chains are doing. I do tend to travel a lot, and I do travel for food a lot. I typically make, at least pre-pandemic, at least one trip a year to each one of the coasts. Try to bring a lot of my staff, both front of house and back of house, just so we can kind of get inspired from ideas. But, honestly, my travel of the last couple of years has all been by car with, a family and a dog, and we're paying attention to what it looks like on all tiers and all levels.
And finding something exciting in even the mundane or
exactly
surprising places.
Yep. And really, I like if I go to someplace I haven't been before, I'm likely to not necessarily find the kind of food I want to eat. Like if I go to, say, just for example, Montrose, I'm not going to look for sushi. I'm going to look for something that's specific to Montrose. That's true in the Pacific Northwest. That's true in the East Coast, the West Coast. I think that's really where you can find, good ideas and people that are really trying to push the envelope with food because they're trying to do something unique.
And does your family like eating meals with you, or do they find it annoying? Are you critical?
No,
do you pick everything apart, or do you really enjoy the food and the experience?
I think, I don't pick anything apart, but I think that if somebody ever asks for my opinion, they maybe get too much. They maybe get more than they bargained for. But, Jody is a super adventurous eater, and she likes food, and that's something that, we definitely have in common. My boys can't stand my cooking. Neither one of them. I can't feed either one of them. I've worked on pizza recipes for a good couple of years, and it's barely even palatable for them. So, so be it.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to regional cuisine. What is Colorado cuisine to you? I mean, to start maybe even bigger, like what is mountain region cuisine? What is Colorado? And what is Grand Valley cuisine?
Well, I mean, I think that's really on a really micro level, and that's definitely something that, I've been a major proponent of for most of my career. But I've started to kind of back that out and look at other factors. Colorado is really Southwest, and Southwestern cuisine was a thing, and it kind of went out of popularity. It is what it is because of what's here. So, geographically, we're influenced by, the borders that we're closest to. We're influenced by the grains that were here and predated the state. It's one thing to grow a specific kind of beet here. It's another thing to propagate corn or, Sonoran flour as it's found its way up from Mexico through, southern United States or southwestern United States and into Colorado. And trying to find those things and those ingredients and those background stories and then use that as the inspiration for our menu that's where we focused. There's a huge story with Colorado lamb. There's a huge story with, ranchers and ranching throughout the area. The Grand Valley in particular, of course, has, history growing beets for sugar production through the sugar beet factory that we have across the street to us here. And, that's all over the state. That wasn't necessarily part of the cuisine. That's just a nice tie-in to the history, and beets do grow really well here. Mm-hmm.
Is anybody growing beets here now significantly?
Yeah. I think last year for the last maybe 5 years now, Blaine has been growing a beet for us called a Badger Flame beet, which is a specific beet that was propagated by a company called Row 7 Seeds, that is grown to not taste like the kind of dirtiness that a lot of the beets have. Uh-huh. They're grown to be really long so that they have a higher yield. They're grown to be to use less water to be grown. So it's a beet that's designed for culinary purposes as opposed to designed for sugar production. Mm-hmm. And it grows fantastically well here. And they've been on our menu for years. But there's all kinds of different beets, and there's all kinds of different farmers growing them here. Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Well, that's a tough question. I really like Japanese cuisine, and I like Mexican cuisine, and I like the intersection of the two. And I know that seems super weird.
Only if you're going to do like beans and I don't know, beans and sushi.
Well, I had this conversation with somebody else recently that, like, if you were to go back to when we started, when everything first started going to this local movement, you saw this change in the conversation almost nationwide, that chefs were starting to pickle everything. And the reason for that was, okay, we're now all sourcing from the same couple of farmers that are only having, small crop yields through a couple months of the year. So how do we keep that on our menus? Mm-hmm. And for us, that was a really pivotal moment that kind of forced us to change the way that we looked at what's coming through the door and how we treat it. So we look to different cultures for preservation, and through a lot of different Asian cultures, Japan, China in particular, a lot of the techniques that they use for preservation can be applied through the products that we have here. Making miso, making hot sauces with, koji as opposed to vinegar, so that we're able to keep these items on our menu for a lot longer. And that's kind of what we're doing with Taco Party in a way, is using this southwestern United States with influences from Mexico and techniques from Asia coming in through our, westernmost border to really kind of rewrite and change the way that we're doing southwestern food, which is totally different than what we're doing at Bin. But what we were doing at Bin, Taco Party didn't fit, which is why Taco Party is what it is, because we can't really have this conversation without this kind of elephant in the room over here that we're not really even talking about. How do we kind of dabble into both of those areas?
Yeah, fascinating. This is making me feel woefully undereducated in my, not only my cuisine, but my technique and my knowledge of food. I just usually go to the grocery store and get inspired by what's there, but I don't seek out necessarily a lot of different things. So I find it fascinating, the things that you put together. Last time I was at your restaurant, I just couldn't believe all the different elements that I had the carpaccio, and it was with the popcorn, and I loved it. It was so great.
If you break down that dish at its core, it's a pork, right? So it's a cured pork loin. So it's pork, green chili, and corn. If there was a Colorado cuisine, it would be pork, green chili, and corn. We've disguised that as a dish that has, kind of come out of a sort of Italian staple and elevate it to something we'd serve on the table at Bin, as opposed to something at Taco Party. But really, it's like, hey, let's look at these ingredients and showcase some different components of them.
And you said, when you talked about Japan, I've noticed that you have some Japanese influences in your bar as well. Talk a little bit about your feelings of the marriage of wine and food and cocktails and food, as I love your cocktails as well.
Mm-hmm. There's no rhyme or reason to have any of the Japanese influences on our bar that we do, other than I'm just a big fan of them. Yeah. So our wine program has changed a couple of times through the years. In 2018, I made a big push to go into almost exclusively natural wines, which is really difficult to do showcasing Colorado wine. So we kind of had to turn that into our own sort of caveat. So we've got, as always, local Colorado and domestically sourced as our primary influence. But then we added natural. And as soon as we added that natural category, we started bringing in a lot of imported wines that followed, they've been growing the same grapes on the same plot of land for 300 years with no intervention. And that really basic, again, technique of producing something, in this case for wine, was kind of this area that we didn't have on our menu, and it seemed to be the sort of the missing piece. Mm-hmm. Between 2018 and now, I can say that there's been enough change in both the United States and in Colorado winemaking that we can now showcase natural wines from Colorado and natural wines from the United States, where 4 years ago even we weren't able to.
Just 4 years that's happened.
It's been a complete shift in the industry as a whole in that short of amount of time, which is really cool. Our bar program, our beverage program, we try to use, spirits that follow that sort of same ethos. And then, a lot of the things that we're putting into both of the menus are the byproduct of the product that walks through the door. Rather than saying, hey, we want to make this dish or make this drink, it's more so, hey, we have access to this ingredient. Where can we use it? Yeah. And a lot of that finds its way into the bar program, whether it's syrups or it's preservations or it's dehydrated or it's powder or what have you. So it's been a lot of fun to sort of explore that. And the bar program itself, I think, has been really fun for other people to sort of dabble in and add their ideas to, or their different flavor profiles to.
I remember when you first opened, enjoying your charcuterie platters, and it seems like those have become really popular all over the country now too. A lot of people producing those, but do you feel like you were kind of at the forefront of that movement as well? And was that because you source a lot of local things, and are they all local?
Yeah, and we still do our cheese and charcuterie, and we've always done all local and or domestic sourced. We really got into doing our own. So that, at any given point, there's at least 4 items on our charcuterie and cheese boards that we make in-house.
Wow.
Which is kind of why we continue to do it. And because it is something that's gotten a lot more popular, and there's so much more variance in it. It's not necessarily anything that we need to do to showcase. It's turned into something that gives us the ability to try things that we haven't done before, whether it's, making a pate or... pre-pandemic, and hopefully by this summer we were doing a bunch with rabbit and doing like a rabbit terrine. Mm-hmm. So we'll have rabbit back on the menu shortly, and that kind of stuff. It's a great area for us to be able to use those types of ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your beverage program at Taco Party. What do you like to drink when you eat tacos?
Well, the beverage program at Taco Party, I should say the beverage program at Taco Party is about to completely change within the next month. And right now it's kind of in an interim version. We turned the cocktail program from something that we were doing a la minute to something that we were doing in bulk and bottling and making it super easy to either consume on site or off premise, which was just, an answer to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So, our margarita there, I think, it's awesome. We, rather than using triple sec, we're using a spirit that's a collab that we're doing with a company called A Toast out of Denver. And it's a spirit that's flavored with what I think is like the flavors of the Grand Valley. So we're doing a little bit of citrus, but then we're doing sage and guajillo as the main flavor components to it.
What's guajillo?
Guajillo is like a dried chili.
The dried chili, okay.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of spice to it. There's a little bit of herbaceousness to it. And so as we apply that to a margarita, rather than just doing an orange liqueur, we're kind of putting in some of these flavors of the Grand Valley. And, I don't think you pull much of it out, but we also use a ton of juniper. So there's some juniper in it as well, which almost makes it kind of dry, like gin would be.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're going to change that all. We're in the process of taking down the wall between the 2 dining rooms, what was previously Dinner Party or Bin Burger, and what Taco Party is currently. We'll go from currently, I think, 35 seats to about 75 seats. When we do that, we'll change the front door to the opposite side, which will then give us kind of back the bar that we were taking orders from, which will give us the opportunity to just expand that bar program. So we'll be expanding.
Fantastic.
Through a lot more agave offerings and a lot more cocktails based off of that. We won't be a tequila bar, we won't be a mezcal bar, but we will have a good amount of really high quality of both.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And are you expanding into the coffee shop area as well?
We're looking at different kind of opportunities there. There are 2 different things that we could do that we're kind of exploring. The first one is to open up the side of Dinner Party in through the coffee shop and turn that into patio space. The other one is to build. And if we build, the idea is to possibly build into sort of an all-day cafe that's attached to it. So then we would start and have some grab and go, breakfast burritos, that kind of stuff out of the Taco Party kitchen available on the corner. Rooftop patio. Expand the wine program significantly, keep the QRs, the location-specific QRs in place so that, somebody could come in, grab a burrito, go upstairs onto the rooftop patio, order a bottle of wine and get work done,
Sounds great.
It would be awesome. And that view, west-facing over the parking lot there with the view of the monument is just, that's what sold us on that building from the get-go. So to be able to even get a better view from the roof would be awesome.
It sounds great.
I think that, I've been saying this kind of for a while. Grand Junction is growing like crazy, but I still think that we have a little ways to go before we necessarily have the demographic to support that type of investment. So like I said, we're exploring those options. We may do a combination of two. We may wait a couple of years before we try to break ground on one.
Well, pre-pandemic, I mean, you're always looking at opportunities and expansion ideas, right? Obviously, things changed for your industry significantly, but we hope you're able to go forward with some new things, because we always just love seeing what you're going to do and bring to us.
Well, it's the Grand Valley's, it's really kind of difficult in the restaurant industry here because we just don't have that much infrastructure, and it's always been a challenge. So what we see and have continued to see, rather than new ground up builds, is second, third, fourth generation operators in the same space, which is awesome, but it's also very slow moving because of that. So we had some traction before the pandemic, and hopefully we are kind of rebounding to the point that some of that starts up again. There's been some good news in the paper lately, and my fingers are crossed that continues to move forward. Well,
obviously the real estate market is crazy, and we're seeing a lot of people coming in from other areas and more new construction happening this year. So as our population grows, hopefully it just becomes a boost for you all too in the restaurant industry here. I'm really curious about the element of fermentation that you brought to Taco Party. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Well, so it's fairly limited what we're able to do. But, when we first opened Taco Party, the premise was that we were going to do a lot of our own fermentations in-house and use those for the tortillas. The first couple of months we were open, I think we had 5 or 6 different tortillas, and they were all based on different misos and what have you that we had fermented in-house and then used that to make the tortilla. As time has gone on, we're kind of less capable to do that stuff, but where we're really focusing is in the hot sauces. So the sauces that we offer, rather than doing just a single recipe, it brings back that seasonality aspect. So we'll buy an entire crop of something and turn that into a long ferment of whatever it is, and then turn that into our hot sauce. Right now we have who was previously the chef de cuisine at BIN, Ryan Sylvester, has been at Taco Party since about the middle of the pandemic and kind of overseeing that stuff. We've actually changed his title from chef de cuisine to executive director of ice cream flavors and condiments, which
he must
suits
be
him
the
very
only
well.
one in the country.
I think that may be the case. But that like our ice cream flavors, the hot sauce and the ice cream is just following seasonal availability. One is completely based on fermentation. The other is completely based on what kind of crazy flavors can we put into an ice cream machine and taste good, whether it's beer or butter or you name it. Yeah. They've been through our ice cream machine in the last 6 months.
That must be really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super fun. And it's hard to make bad ice cream. And his ice creams are absolutely fantastic. So the combination of the two is like...
Do your kids like the ice cream?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now we have pear and brown butter. And my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old both love that more than the chocolate that we previously had.
Wow. I'm going to have to go try that. That sounds great. So, Guy Fieri.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was surreal.
Whirlwind? Tornado?
Yeah. The timing was super serendipitous. It was over Aspen Food and Wine Weekend. We typically cook at Aspen Food and Wine, both in the grand tasting tent and then other events. And this year I just wasn't comfortable going. It was, the tent itself is, I think, 3,000 people a day, which is just such a high risk. If we take all of our employees, that shuts down my restaurants for weeks because we went to do an event one day. So we decided to stay for the first time in 5 or 6 years. And almost the following week, I got a call from his team that said that he's going to be in the Grand Valley filming, kind of going back and forth from Aspen to here to film for a couple of different restaurants. And honestly, at the time when we heard that, they hadn't decided which one of the restaurants they wanted to showcase. So I wasn't really a part of that conversation, but they decided to film Taco Party. So we filmed, I think, 3 different days. We were closed for 2 days and we managed to open for dinner on the 3rd. Mm-hmm. He was in the shop for, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours total of like 20 hours of filming.
Wow.
He came in, he did his thing. you can kind of see it from television, but he's a comedian first, and he's the most knowledgeable person on food you'll ever meet second. And the combination of the two, he comes in, he puts on a show, he gets everybody laughing.
Yeah.
He puts out great content.
He sure does. Yeah. His show is really enjoyable.
Yeah. And we've always had a TV on at Ben that's playing the Food Network. So he's been on the TV at Ben for 12 years now. So it's kind of cool to actually see him on the Ben TV in Taco Party.
Yeah. And when does it air?
It aired originally sometime mid-December.
Okay.
And it's re-aired a handful of times since then. I can only tell you that because I'll get up and have 400 new likes on Taco Party page on social media, and questions of when are you going to open here, here, and here. Uh-huh. So I think it's aired 3 or maybe 4 times so far.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, we were really happy with it. It came out great.
It's fun. Do you ever seek out some of the other restaurants that he talks about?
I never have. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I'm full speed ahead when I'm at work, and when I'm not at work, I'm trying to be with my boys, and so I really haven't had the opportunity to see a whole lot of it. Honestly, when they reached out, I don't think I had watched one of his shows in maybe 10 years. So we had to, Jody and I went and sat down and watched YouTube and watched all these different things and got an idea for what his shows did. So
I watch it in hotels when I travel. I'm either on HGTV or the Food Network at night when I'm in a hotel.
It sounds like he's got a following of people that know every move and that follow, restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, which is pretty cool. I mean, we've seen some of them already, and yeah, it's awesome. And they visited Feisty Pint and Brunello del Bistro, and I think that they really painted a really nice picture of downtown Grand Junction, which is awesome.
Fantastic. We'll take that, won't we?
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say gives you the most joy in life as far as food and wine and restaurants? I mean, do you love being in the kitchen? Do you love the people aspect of it?
I'd say all of the above. My favorite part by far is in the kitchen. It's few and far between that I get to work line shifts, and they're my favorite. And every time I'm there, I'm smiling and I'm telling everybody around me how much fun it is and that I love it. I'm also pushing 50 years old, and there is no question that I'm not able to do, a week worth of line shifts if my life depended on it. So I love that aspect of it. I love serving. I love creating dishes. I love the push of, a busy service. I also really enjoy creating spaces. And honestly, I think that's the most rewarding part. So, from the ambiance of the restaurant to the service of the restaurant, to the music of the restaurant, to, the menu, the food, the whole thing, creating that space that's the part that I enjoy the most. I come from an industrial design background. My stepfather's an architect. My mom was an interior designer.
Oh, wow.
It's all part of
you.
It's all part of the package, I think.
Well, and it's obvious. I mean, I think every time I go in and you've got a little bit of a redesign, I think, wow, I can't believe they improved this place, but it just feels even better than it did before.
Well, and that's part of it too, is to keep it evolving. Just keep making those changes so it's always unexpected, and that alone is kind of part of the recipe.
Mm-hmm. How many hours a week do you spend in experimenting with new foods and cooking different recipes and things you've never tried before?
Pre-pandemic, probably 15. Through the pandemic, the first several months, I cooked a family meal menu that was a new menu every single day for 2 months. That led to changing the menus at Ben. It's been the most successful menu change we've ever done. And honestly, it is the longest we've kept most of those menu items on the menu. And what's really weird is all of us are, I don't want to say we're totally bored with them, but it's the longest menu we've ever had.
And how long is that?
We're going on 1.5 years. And with the accolades that we just got from the James Beard Foundation, it's hard to even be motivated to change. It's like, well, we've never done this before, and we're getting, some accolades for it. So, I look back on what we've done through the restaurant, and I think we've gone too fast in the past, and we've gone through dishes that people haven't even seen because they came and went off the menu as quickly as they did. So,
is that because of the seasonality of them?
Initially, it was absolutely, but a lot of those came with ideas that could be expanded upon. So really, I'm kind of going backwards and trying to pull some of those ideas back out and put them back on the menu because they seem to be carrying more traction. So,
do you see any trends coming that you're excited about? One of the things I think of is Brussels sprouts. I didn't like Brussels sprouts 5 years ago, and now I can't get enough. I eat them like 3 times a week, and I find 5 different ways to make them that I love, all of it. And I'm so surprised. And kale. I love kale now too. What kind of ingredients are coming to the forefront of the U.S. palate?
Grains. Mm-hmm. And I know that's such an open-ended thing, but grains, especially, for lack of a better word, heirloom grains, regionally specific grains, small production with high quality milling. We just haven't seen that as a culture. Like, the reason that Italian pizza and Neapolitan style pizza tastes the way it does is because of those grains and those milling
and the way they mill.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's what makes pasta. It's what differentiates good from bad in those things, and we are just at the tip of that. I think 5 years from now, everything will be locally sourced grains.
Wow.
So I think we're right at the beginning of that. The other big trend that I see right now starting, I wouldn't say big, but a trend that's starting is co-ferments. Wines that are made with other fruit, whether that's cider that's fermented with grape must or what have you. Patrick at Sauvage Spectrum has just released one that's fantastic. Currently I realized we have 7 on the bin menu right now. I have never had 7 co-ferments on the menu, which means that there's at least 7 available that weren't previously there. So I think there's a big trend starting there as well.
Neat. I think I could just go to bin every day and try a new combination of something, a new cocktail or a new glass of wine with something that I haven't paired it with before, which is exciting to me. So I need to be there more. Let's see. Oh, what is it about the bin burger you think that makes it so dang good?
It's a combination of things. So when I put the bin burger on the menu, I put that menu together in my mind, 30 different combinations, and in the 11th hour, I decided, I think Jody said, listen, you need to have something that's super approachable, and she was exactly right. So we kind of created this idea of a burger. The bin burger was inspired by a burger at a place called, I want to say Chuck Wagon. I don't know if that's right. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. It's been there for 50 years. The idea was a really flat patty with a relatively high fat content, so that as it cooks, it kind of renders its own fat and it gets a really hard char on it. That was the inspiration for the burger. So the mechanics of our burger have to do with how the fat content hits the flame and how the flame flavors the burger with the smoke, the Maillard reaction that happens on the meat itself that creates, additional flavor. And then from there, it's texture. So the frisée is the crispy part. The lettuce is the crispy part. It's usually the tomato, and in our case, we put that into the lettuce. The onion is really, thinly sliced, so the onion is flavor instead of texture. The tomato is always intended to be super soft. The bun is it's a potato bun that we steam, so the bun's as soft as possible. So from a texture component, the crisp vegetables, and the secret to it is we put all of the vegetables on the side of the burger so the burger doesn't steam the vegetables until you're ready to eat. And it's a couple of these little super basic technique things that the combination of all of them make it what it is. Which
is, I'm sure, where I'm failing in the kitchen. If I'm not paying enough attention to how... I'm sure that's the only reason I'm failing in the kitchen is what I meant to say. If I'm not paying attention to how thinly I'm slicing my onions for my burger, that has a completely different outcome, doesn't it? Or when I put them on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Burger. Yeah.
And again, it's temperature and texture are just as important as the flavor itself. If the temperature and the texture of the items are incorrect, the whole thing doesn't work. So it's sort of this combination of all of that.
Well, anything else you'd like to share with us about restaurants or Grand Junction or life in general?
Well, I have to say that at this point, kind of post-pandemic that we're in, and looking the way that Grand Junction has come out from the pandemic, from a hospitality standpoint, from a restaurant standpoint, I think that if there's nothing else that we've learned, it's how important tourism is to our economy and how much the hospitality and the restaurant industry has been able to stay afloat because of that here. Mm-hmm. And I think, we're finally starting to take notice of it as a community, and it's just, not only is it's exciting, but had it not been for that, I know we wouldn't be, but a lot of the restaurants in our community wouldn't be here. So, of course, our local support has been just absolutely fantastic, but the tourism and the way that we've responded and been able to continue to kind of welcome with open arms the tourism industry here, it's absolutely saved us. So hopefully that continues to grow.
And hopefully things like Guy Fieri and James Beard will bring more tourists to our area just for the cuisine, and then they'll find out about all the other great things that are happening around here. That's
and absolutely
exciting.
I mean, my fingers are crossed that helps to continue the labor situation that we have here, that this becomes a destination for people that want to work in those industries.
Mm-hmm. I hope so too. Josh, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the most success in all of your endeavors, and we're really excited to watch James Beard and just excited for you with that honor. It's really amazing.
Well,
we're lucky to have you here in Grand Junction.
Thanks for having me. It's a total pleasure.
Stay here, keep opening restaurants, keep cooking. And thanks to your wife, Jody, for helping out. You guys are amazing.
Well, thanks so much.
All right. If you haven't yet been to Taco Party or Bin 707, do yourself a favor. Go try a Bin Burger. Go try some tacos, some co-fermented wine. So many wonderful things to try. And the desserts. We didn't even talk about desserts.
The pies.
The pies. Got to go try those too. So thanks for tuning in, watching, and listening to the Full Circle podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Thanks for listening. This is Christi Reese signing out from the Full Circle podcast.